I'm Jake. I'm 29, and until recently, I thought I was building something real with a woman named Alina. We met at a work mixer. I fix things for a living, small contractor jobs, handyman work, plumbing, electrical, anything that needs a wrench and a little patience. She was the social media manager for a boutique clothing brand. Smart, stylish, always had something witty to say. When we first started dating, she told me she admired guys who worked with their hands, who could actually fix things instead of just pretending they knew how. I remember laughing at that. Thought it was a compliment. Thought she meant it. The first 6 months were great. We weren't flashy. Just dinners, movie nights, quiet weekends fixing up her condo, which she bought from her aunt at a discount. She'd cook, sort of, mostly pasta or takeout, but she made a big deal out of lighting candles and plating everything like we were on a cooking show. I found it cute. I liked how she made simple things feel special. When her garbage disposal broke, I replaced it. When her bathroom faucet leaked, I pulled it apart, swapped out the gaskets, and had it working like new. She'd sit nearby with a glass of wine, watching me work like I was doing magic. "How do you know how to do all that?" she'd ask. "You make it look so easy." But then things changed. Subtly at first. It wasn't anything big, just little comments. Her friends would come over and ask when we were taking a real trip, and she'd glance at me like she was waiting for me to say something impressive. "He's saving up," she'd joke. "One day we'll leave the country, right, babe?" Then she'd laugh, and I'd laugh too, even though I felt the sting behind her words. I started noticing how different we looked together in photos. She was always polished, makeup, trendy clothes, always posing like it was for a magazine. I was usually in a worn hoodie, jeans with paint on the cuffs, work boots. I didn't mind how I looked. I work with my hands, not filters. But in the captions, it started to show. Me and my fixer-upper, or date night with the tool man. At first, I thought it was her way of being playful. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like love and started feeling like a role I was cast in. It was a Wednesday when everything cracked. I'd come over to fix her sink. She'd been complaining for days that the water pressure was low and that her cabinet smelled like mildew. I just pulled the trap apart under the sink and found the leak. The seal had rotted, and the pipe was warped. I was tightening the new fitting when I heard laughter, hers, along with the giggles of two of her closest friends, Rachel and Emily. They were in the living room, wine glasses clinking, music playing low in the background. I didn't think much of it. They always talked loudly when they were together. But then Rachel's voice cut through, clearer than the others. "So, seriously, what are you doing with him? I mean, he's sweet, but..." I stopped moving. My hands froze on the wrench. The silence that followed was long enough that I almost convinced myself they were switching topics. Then Alina answered. "He's just a placeholder," she said, laughing. "Until I find the real deal." They burst into laughter again. High-pitched. Mean. Emily chimed in with something about rough hands and free labor, but I didn't catch the exact words. I just sat there under the sink, staring at the pipe I'd just replaced. Something in me went quiet. I didn't get mad. Not right away. That came later. First, I just felt cold. Like someone had pulled a rug out from under me, and I was lying there staring at the floor, too stunned to move. I wiped my hands on the rag tucked in my back pocket, stood up slowly, and walked into the kitchen. The girls didn't notice at first. Alina was halfway through pouring another round of wine. Her friends were scrolling through Instagram, showing her something funny. When they finally looked up, I didn't say a word. I just walked to the table, set the wrench down beside her coaster, and pulled the spare key from my jacket pocket. I placed it next to the wrench, gave her a single look. No anger, no emotion, and turned around. "Jake?" she said, blinking. "Wait, where are you?" I didn't answer. I just walked out the front door. I didn't sleep that night. Drove aimlessly for a few hours before landing in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. Ordered coffee. Didn't drink it. Just sat there, staring out the window while my phone buzzed again and again with texts. First from Alina, then her friends, then her again. They started out confused. "Where are you?" Then turned defensive. "You're overreacting." Then desperate. "Please talk to me." I didn't respond to any of them. Over the next week, I moved everything back into my old place. Took a couple of side jobs. Stayed quiet. Thought a lot about how I'd let someone slowly erode my sense of self without even noticing. About how being called a placeholder made everything else suddenly make sense. But here's the thing. Silence is power. I didn't post anything. Didn't talk trash. Didn't explain myself to mutual friends. I let her sit in that echo chamber of uncertainty. And that's when something interesting happened. 2 weeks later, Rachel, her best friend, the same one who laughed the hardest that night, posted a photo. It was from the vacation Alina and I were supposed to take in June. We'd already paid for half of it. Well, I had. Plane tickets to Banff, a cozy cabin near Lake Louise, and a rental car. The caption? Found the real deal. I didn't comment. Didn't react. But I screenshotted it. Sent it to myself with a timestamp. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because, well, sometimes people reveal who they are without you needing to lift a finger. And that's where things started to spiral. Alina didn't find out about the post until a day or two later. I know because her name disappeared from Rachel's friend list shortly after. Mutuals started talking, whispering. Screenshots began circulating. You know how people get when something messy surfaces? They act like archaeologists, piecing together a drama timeline from Instagram comments and deleted stories. From what I heard, Alina messaged Rachel privately first. No public blow-up. Just a cold, frantic DM. Then she tried calling. Rachel didn't answer. Then she commented on the photo, something vague like, really classy, Ratch. That comment got maybe a dozen likes before it vanished. When it did, so did half her followers. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. It was more like watching someone walk into a trap they'd built themselves. Like a movie you've seen before. You know how it ends. You just sit back and wait for the scene to play out. I kept my hands busy. Booked more jobs. Replaced a deck for a sweet couple in their 60s who fed me homemade lemon bars and called me son. Fixed a busted breaker panel for a daycare center that couldn't afford to wait a week for the city's overpriced guy. People who saw value in what I did. Who thanked me without smug grins or backhanded compliments. That helped. Reminded me I wasn't some filler role in someone else's story. Then, one night, my phone buzzed again. Alina. I hadn't blocked her. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see how far she'd fall before she hit the ground. Maybe I just wasn't done watching. Her message was short. Can we talk? I stared at it for a while, then tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Didn't reply. Drove to a client's house to check on a water heater install. Slept fine that night. But the next morning, she showed up at my door. I live in a modest house just outside town. Nothing fancy. One story. Porch light always burned out no matter how many times I replaced the bulb. I was out front checking my toolboxes when her car pulled up. White crossover. Clean as always. She stepped out wearing jeans and a fitted sweater like she was dressing down for the occasion. No makeup. Eyes puffy. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there and watched her walk up the path like she was stepping into court. I didn't know you were outside, she said quietly. That day? I didn't mean for you to hear that. I didn't nod. Didn't shake my head either. Just let the silence hang. You know how girls talk, she added with a weak laugh. I was just, I don't know, trying to make them laugh. It didn't mean anything. I finally looked at her. Really looked. Did it not mean anything when you called me a placeholder? Or when you let them call me free labor? Her eyes dropped. Jake, I was stupid. Yeah, I said. You were. That should have been the end of it. She could have turned around, walked back to her car, and left it there. But of course, she didn't. Rachel lied, she said suddenly. She only posted that picture to mess with me. I didn't even know she was going on that trip. You think I'm with her now? I'm not. She did that to hurt me. I crossed my arms. So now it's about you being hurt. She blinked. Funny how you only care when you're the one getting hit. I added. Where was that energy when I was under your sink, fixing your problems while you laughed about me being temporary? Tears started welling in her eyes. Real ones, probably. But I wasn't moved. I messed up, she whispered. I got caught up trying to impress people who don't matter. I was scared, Jake. I didn't know if we were really going anywhere. I thought maybe I was settling. But now I see what I gave up. I let that sit for a moment. You're right, I said. You were settling. Not for me. Just for the idea of being seen with someone real. Someone grounded. You wanted the aesthetic of a relationship without the actual work. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. I don't hate you, I said. I just don't respect you anymore. And that's worse. She stood there for a moment, frozen in place. Then she turned and walked back to her car. Didn't slam the door. Didn't cry out. Just drove off, quiet. But the fallout wasn't done. Because what she didn't know was that I had one last card to play, one she handed me without realizing it. She'd given me access to her condo's utilities, all in her name, but I'd set everything up for her: online portals, passwords, auto debits. I told her once to update them. She never did. She never changed the login. And buried in the email linked to those accounts were receipts. Credit card bills with names she didn't recognize. Travel charges. Brunches. Gifts. Not mine. Someone else's. Dates with someone she swore she wasn't seeing. At least 3 weeks before the night I walked out. She thought calling me a placeholder was her worst mistake. She was wrong. I sat on that information for about 3 days. I wasn't sure at first if I even wanted to do anything with it. Part of me wanted to just let it go, move on, start fresh. Be the bigger person, like everyone's always preaching. But every time I thought about it, I remembered the sound of her laughter through the window. The way she said placeholder, like I was a pair of worn-out sneakers she kept around until she could afford heels. Then I thought about the months I spent fixing her place. The weekends I gave up to repaint her kitchen, to tear out rotten floorboards, to clean the gutters when her HOA sent warning letters. I thought about how she'd lean against the doorframe, sipping wine, calling me her man, while secretly texting someone else behind my back. No, I wasn't going to be the bigger person. I was going to be the one who finished the job, just not the kind she was expecting. I didn't go for anything dramatic right away. I started slow. I logged into the email linked to her utilities. It was the same one tied to her Amazon account, her gym membership, even her airline rewards. One password. No two-factor. I knew she'd never suspect me because she hadn't even changed her Netflix login since we split. That's how confident she was that I'd just vanish. That I'd slink off, lick my wounds, and disappear. The first thing I did was compile. I made a tidy little PDF, all the transactions, all the dates. One tab labeled, while we were together. Another labeled, after you called me a placeholder. The overlap was glorious. Turns out the guy she was seeing, I'll call him Drew, had been around for a while. A brunch charge from 3 days before my birthday. A hotel receipt from the same weekend. I thought she had food poisoning. Even a spa package. She'd told me she was gifting it to her mom. It felt like getting to watch a movie from the director's chair. Every moment that hadn't made sense now had context. Every shift in her tone, every sudden errand, every girl's night out that ended with her phone on airplane mode. It was all there. Labeled. Time-stamped. Undeniable. But I wasn't done. Because Alina? She wasn't just vain, she was proud. She'd built this image online of being the classy, independent woman with a handyman boyfriend who adored her. Her Instagram was full of perfectly framed photos of fresh-pressed juices, latte art, hand-holding at the farmer's market. She even had a highlight reel titled Us, with clips of me carrying lumber, assembling furniture, wiping dust off my jeans like I was her personal HGTV star. So I built something too. An anonymous Instagram account. Blank profile. No followers. No name. Just a link in the bio. The link led to a shared Google Drive folder titled Real Deal, Unfiltered. Inside, screenshots, transaction receipts, date overlaps. A couple of those travel photos Rachel had posted, which I found were still geotagged. And one particular gem, a short video clip Alina once took of me under her sink, my shirt soaked from the leak, where she said, laughing, "My little workhorse." She never posted that one. Guess it didn't fit the vibe. I captioned it, behind the aesthetic. I didn't send the link to anyone. Not at first. I just followed her friends. A few coworkers. Her cousin Megan, who never liked me much and used to post passive-aggressive comments like, "Hope he's not just your maintenance guy, lol." I let the mystery build. And then I waited. By the third day, the account had a dozen followers. Silent, private ones. I hadn't posted anything publicly yet, just the link in the bio. But someone had clearly shared it. That's when the messages started. Who is this? What is this about? Is this about Alina? I didn't answer. I posted the first story. Just a black background with white text. He was just a placeholder, until the receipts arrived. By noon, the account had 30 followers. I knew what would happen next. Alina would hear about it. Someone in her circle would send her the link. She'd click it, see the folder, and panic. And she'd know exactly who made it. Not because I signed it, but because I'd laid the foundation with the same precision I'd used to fix her sink. Later that night, my phone rang. I didn't answer. She tried again. Again. Then came the texts. "What did you do? Take this down right now. This is sick, Jake. You're ruining my life." Funny how that works. I guess placeholders aren't supposed to fight back. I was about to mute her when the final message came through. Please, I'll lose my job if this spreads. And right then, I paused, because that's when I realized something deeper had just surfaced, something bigger than revenge. It wasn't just about getting even anymore. It was about whether I was going to be the guy she said I was, or the man she never saw coming. I stared at her last message for a long time. Please, I'll lose my job if this spreads. That sentence sat like a rock in my chest, not because I felt sorry for her, but because it was the first time she'd spoken to me like I had real power. Like I was more than just the guy under her sink. Like she finally saw me for what I was. Someone who could decide her fate. Funny how fear makes people honest. She hadn't apologized. Not really. Not for cheating. Not for the placeholder line. Not for months of playing dress up with our relationship while shopping for a better version behind my back. What she was sorry for was getting caught. I thought about it for another day. And then I took the drive folder offline. Not because I was soft or because she deserved grace. No, I did it because I realized that I'd already won. I didn't need to destroy her job, her career, or her image. She'd already lit the match herself. I just made sure there was enough gas around to make her sweat. I deleted the Instagram account next. But before I did, I posted one final story. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to go viral. It just needs to be known. No name, no signature, just closure. I wish I could say she stayed out of my life after that. But people like Alina don't go away that quietly. 3 days later, she showed up at my house again. This time, it was raining. Hard. She was standing on my porch, soaked to the bone in a beige trench coat that was clearly not made for storms. Her mascara was smudged, her hair stuck to her cheeks, and she looked, finally, like a real person. Not the polished version I'd been dating for over a year. I opened the door, just far enough for her to know I saw her. "Jake," she said, voice cracking. "You didn't have to go that far." I tilted my head. But I didn't. That's the point. She stepped closer. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I was scared. Not of you. Of me. I thought I was supposed to have more. Be more. That being with someone like you meant settling." I didn't flinch. "But you were the only person who ever showed up," she added. "The only one who ever fixed things instead of breaking them." I exhaled through my nose and leaned on the doorframe. "Do you want forgiveness? Or do you want to stop feeling guilty?" She blinked, like I'd slapped her. "I think both," she whispered. I nodded once. "Then start by forgiving yourself." "Because I already have." A tear rolled down her cheek. But I didn't invite her in. I didn't hug her. I didn't say, "Let's talk it out." Instead, I closed the door. Behind me, the rain kept falling, a steady rhythm against the roof, like punctuation on the end of a sentence I'd waited too long to finish. That night, I made a decision. I logged into the travel site where we'd booked our canceled vacation, Banff, the trip I'd paid for entirely. I used the credit rollover to book something new. Solo. Cabin in the woods. No Wi-Fi, no cell reception, just pine trees and silence. I packed light, just clothes, a toolbox, and the dog-eared paperback I kept meaning to finish. Before I left, I wrote a letter. Not to Alina, not to Rachel, just to myself. You're not a placeholder. You're not someone waiting for life to start. You're the foundation, the guy who shows up, the man who fixes what's broken, starting with yourself. I folded it, stuck it in my glove box, and hit the road. The drive took 16 hours. I stopped only for gas and black coffee. No music, just the hum of the engine and the wind. When I arrived, the cabin was smaller than I expected. One room, a wood-burning stove, and a porch that overlooked a still lake. I stepped outside, looked at the water, and felt something shift in my chest. Like a window opening after a long, stuffy winter. I stayed for a week. Chopped wood. Cooked over fire. Read. Slept. And for the first time in months, I stopped hearing her voice in my head. The laughter. The phrase "just a placeholder." It faded. Not because it stopped mattering, but because I did the one thing she never thought I would. I moved on. When I came back to town, things had changed. A friend of mine, Kevin, another contractor, told me Alina had left her job. Rumor was, she asked for a transfer after the real deal drama made the rounds internally. Nothing ever got traced back to me, but people talk. Word spreads, especially when a Golden Girls halo starts slipping. She posted less after that. No more curated couple shots. No more DIY projects featuring her tool man. The aesthetic crumbled. And eventually, she faded from the algorithm entirely. Meanwhile, my business grew. Turns out, people respected a man who kept his head down and did good work. I started getting referrals, new clients. One even asked me to teach her teenage son some basic repair skills. Said, "You're the kind of guy I'd want my kid to turn into." That one stuck with me. A few months later, I met someone new. Her name's Danny. She runs a bookstore downtown. First time we met, she asked me to fix a shelf that had collapsed under a stack of hardcovers. She didn't laugh at my boots, didn't ask if I was settling by working with my hands. She just handed me a level and said, "I like things balanced. We're not rushing anything. No aesthetic. No filtered highlight reels. Just dinners. Stories. Quiet." The first time I brought her to my place, she looked at my tools lined up on the wall and said, "You know, people underestimate guys who build things. But you're the ones holding everything together." I smiled, not because I needed the validation, but because it reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Placeholders don't hold anything. But I did. I held myself together when she dropped me. I held my silence when revenge would have been easy. I held the truth until it didn't burn anymore. And in the end, that made me more than she ever saw. It made me whole. So if you're reading this and you've ever felt like someone was just keeping you around, know this: you're not a placeholder. You're the real deal. They just weren't ready to meet you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.